camera.
If you've ever been to a fandom convention or a writers' conference, you know how valuable and entertaining panels can be. But if you've never been to a Multiverse Convention panel, you have no idea how amazing they truly are. Multiverse has a knack for making virtually any panel into a free-flowing conversation, one that doesn't always stay in the room or stay within its hour. Attendees and panelists alike often continue the conversation well after the panel is officially over. And this year, as Go Indie Now turns the spotlight on the Multiverse Convention with our ongoing series, in addition to our interview sessions, we've also put together a few panels modeling what a multiverse panel is like, in hopes that you get the feeling for what those who have experienced it already know. Once you've been to a multiverse panel, you want them all to be that way.
All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming this evening. This is the Multiverse Writers Track, and we will be talking about writing while unmotivated tonight with our wonderful panelists here. We are going to see if Miss Molly is able to turn up this evening, but if not, we will proceed without her. I am going to be your moderator, Kyoko M. I would like each of our wonderful panelists to please go ahead and give your name and give where anybody can find your work, and maybe one work that you would like to promote very briefly before we get started.
So I'm Tyra Burton, and you can find me at tyraburton.com. And right now, my creative focus has actually been on a live stream podcast called Be Awesome Together.
Nice.
Oh, I'm going to add you to my podcast list.
Oh, thanks.
I'm Paige L. Christie. You can find me at Paige L. Christie pretty much everywhere. Just put the L in, otherwise you end up with a fabulous swimmer from the UK. Probably I've re-released with new covers my book Dragon Weather, the first of the Legacies of Arnon series. So it's got a fabulous new cover, and you should go check it out.
I'm Nancy Northcott. You can find me at nancynorthcott.com. And currently I'm working on the last novella of a series that ties in with my Board King's Honor historical fantasy with romance books for Falstaff Books. But the new ones I'm working on actually don't have romance. So sometimes with, sometimes without.
All right, and I am Kyoko M. I'm the author of the Black Parade Urban Fantasy series, the Of Cinder and Bone Science Fiction series, and then 2 Marvel anthologies as well. And I have a trilogy with Falstaff Books, starting with the Starlight Contingency, which came out this past October. All right, I am looking very forward to jumping into this. So what I'm basically going to do, we're going to ask a few questions and have each of you answer. We'll just kind of go in the order that we have and see how many questions we get to this evening. And so what we're going to start with is, at what point in your creative process do you usually get stuck? We'll start with Tyra.
Well, I just got stuck. Well, I just got unstuck, but I got stuck. And I usually get stuck about after, the journey begins, about a third to halfway through. And I will back myself into a corner no matter how good I plan, which I'm not a planner. I'm a pantster, and it's not good. I need to change my ways, but it is what it is. And I ended up in a corner that I was like, oh, this is, I don't know what to do. And then I got stuck for like a month, which is not good. And then I finally got unstuck. So usually somewhere around that halfway point.
All right, what about you, Paige?
For me, it's usually about 2/3 of the way. If I'm in a project, I get stuck about 2/3. And it's not that I get stuck, it's that I get anxious to get to the end. And I don't want to do what needs to be done to make it work. I just I get impatient. And so I have to slow myself down. So for me, getting stuck is just being like, okay, I'm ready to be done. It's like you get to that point where there's points in your life where you like to write, and then there's points in your life when you like to have written. I have done the thing, and I'm ready to have done the thing, and then I get kind of meh and I have to no, if you got to get to that point, you actually have to do the words. So, yeah, I get stuck about 60%, 70% through usually. Yeah.
What about you, Nancy?
Well, there's not a usual place in any given project where I get stuck, but the thing that most often makes me stuck at whatever point in the story is when something has to happen and I'm getting ready to write it, and I realize that the logistics that I thought worked so incredibly well actually don't. And then I have to sit down and figure out how to fix that and how to make this happen without twisting the story into a pretzel or being inconsistent with the rules that I've laid down. Like, as you all know, when you're writing a story with magic in it, you got to follow the internal rules unless there's a really good reason, which you explain not to. And so that's usually what sticks me is something needs to happen. In fact, I'm stuck on that in a project right now. Something needs to happen, and it's not working, and I just need to sit down and bang through it with people and figure out how can we make this work.
You can't just because plot it.
Right. Just
Yeah.
because it's handy. No.
Yeah.
Very much. I think I'm a little bit like Paige. So I think I usually get stuck in the transition between Act 2 and Act 3, because like I write really fast. So like my first act is always done immediately within like a few days of starting. And then when I move from 2 to 3, that's when I like really get bogged down with stuff. It can be world building, it can be character motivations, it can be exactly what Nancy said, which is like, I hate a scene where I know I need to write it and everything will be fine after I get there. But if it's like, especially if it's like she said, a logistics scene, something where I have to like set up, no, I have to stop here and set the stage and then explain, and then they can go do the thing. But you have to put it, I stop every time on those. So our next question is, so after you have gotten stuck, what is the first thing that you do when you recognize that you might have lost your motivation?
So I finally did the thing I should have done long before I did the thing. So I went back and read what I wrote. And I had gone back further and to kind of see how did I get myself into this corner. And by the time I got done with it, I went, oh, this will fix this problem. And it immediately popped into my head. I was like, why didn't I go back and do this sooner? Because it's what I normally do is, at least go back a chapter and read. And it was like magic. And now I know the answer to my problem. And now I got to go write it. So it's nice seeing all of you. But
Good.
Yeah, it's situational. Because sometimes I don't know. I know that something's not working, but I don't know why. And sometimes we say motivation, and sometimes it's not motivation. Sometimes other things are in the way: mental health, life problems, health problems, family problems, work problems that doesn't allow my imagination um, to to get away from, because my problem is I can overthink something. I can stare at. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to fix it, and that's not how imagination works. That's editor brain. That's not creator brain. And so when I'm drowning, I just have to back away, and it's usually a 3 a.m. thing where I wake up and I'm like, oh, and like the fourth book in my series. The very climactic scene that the whole series had been leading to, I had written it and it was wrong, and it was wrong, and it was wrong, and it was wrong, and I couldn't figure it out. And I woke up at 3 a.m. and I went, this word is wrong. And I changed one word and it changed the entire scene. But it was 4 months of me just having to let it go and be like, I'll figure it out. I'll dig a hole, I'll blow it up, and I just had to let go of trying to fix it. And then it fixed itself in my brain at like 4 a.m. And it was literally one word, which is the most bizarre thing that's ever happened to me in writing. So sometimes I have to recognize that me trying to fix the thing is actually what's keeping me from fixing the thing.
I have to step away from it too. And what I'll usually do is work on a jigsaw puzzle. Because while I'm working on the jigsaw puzzle, putting those pieces together, the back of my brain is playing with the other pieces and moving them. I used to play Tetris, and then I killed the cartridge by taking it out of the machine without turning the machine off, and that'll kill it pretty quickly. So jigsaw puzzles work for me. And then when I get some idea of where the problem is, I'll call the people that I brainstorm with. The first book in the Boar King's Honor trilogy started out to be a standalone, and it's about a family curse and efforts to lift the family curse. And I realized as I got to the end of the book and had decided that it was going to be, after all, a trilogy set in 3 different eras, I didn't actually know how the curse got set. And I didn't actually know what they were going to have to do to lift it. And see, I thought I had set it up so if you find something, boom, that's it. And then I realized that is not going to cut it. And so, you know, it's partly like what Tyra says. You read it over and then you realize that no matter how cohesive it felt to you as you were rolling right along at the keyboard, it's not. And you have to figure that out. So jigsaw puzzles are kind of my go-to. They sort of give me a brain reset. And then I can get on the phone with my brainstorming partners and go, okay, here's the problem. Here's what needs to happen. How do we get from A to B?
Okay. Well, actually, that's interesting because that sort of answers the next question, which is when you hit that point where you're in the rut, do you like to slow down and just put it in a drawer, or do you like to push through? So you guys kind of answered that in your last question. So why don't you just elaborate a little bit more on in terms of times where you feel like you want to push through? Is it in small passages? Is it small chapters? Is it small arcs? Or is it times when you just like, no, I'd rather wait and knock it all out when I'm ready?
So for me, I do what Paige and Nancy does. I try to put it down and like let it go, be Elsa, as I often say. But this last time, being Elsa was not working. It was just helping me delay not doing the thing I needed to be doing. And finally, actually, it was on my birthday, I sat down and I did the opposite. So I think sometimes being flexible can help. So for me, I usually do that. But this time it was like, no, you've actually got to get in there and figure out what you did to yourself and what corner you backed yourself into. I also sometimes find going back for me, looking at my character development sheets and looking at their backstories can sometimes help me figure out what was the motivation that got us here that I wasn't expecting, but was actually sitting in their backstory the entire time. I just didn't connect the dots as well as the characters in my brain did. So usually I do the let it go, but this time I didn't, and it was much better. And I look at characters.
Okay, cool.
When I can't do the let it go, like if I'm on a deadline and I have to get it done, I usually I'm a Scrivener writer. I'll usually open a new scene file in Scrivener and I will just start typing. And it usually starts off with stuff that's like, why did you think you could do this? What are you doing? I can't believe, like, why am I even trying to write this? And I just get all the crap that's locking up my brain out. And the next thing I know, I'm writing. The other thing I do is, because sometimes it's not lack of motivation. It's we start to doubt ourselves as writers. We start to doubt our skill. I mean, I do. I don't know if everybody does, but I do. I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. How did I ever do this before? I can't get this done. What is wrong with me? You go down that chaos spiral in your brain at times. At least I do. And I will go back and I will pull up something old that I wrote that I like. And I will read it and I'll go, oh, I do know how to do this. I am good at this. Oh, these characters are really interesting. And I'm like, oh, okay, I've got this. It's not gone. It's just I'm in this spiral. And so sometimes I have to get rid of all the negative stuff in my brain, remind myself that I can write, remind myself that I'm good at what I do, um, flush all the crap, and then just push through it. But sometimes it's more than pushing through the story problem. Sometimes it's pushing through a me problem and my own mind games that I tend to play. I am not like Kyoko. I am a slow writer. It takes me forever to get something done. Um, and oftentimes I get frustrated by that because I feel like I should be a plotter. I should be faster. I should be able to change the way I do things. And that's not who I am. And when I get out of the shoulds and into the me, then I can get going again. So if that helps anybody out there.
For me, it kind of depends on what it is that's the problem. If it's a small thing, a scene just doesn't feel quite right, the vibe between the characters just isn't quite what I want it to be, sometimes I'll just push through that to get to the next thing and think, okay, it's okay if this one thing stinks now because I'm going to edit it anyway. I just need to push through it and get the gist of it in there, and then I can refine how it goes when I make the next pass. If it's a big logistical thing, though, like I was talking about earlier, I really do, I need to stop. I can't go forward until I get that worked out. And I'm actually coming out of a phase like Paige was talking about where garbage just creates static and words won't come and it doesn't work. And I started out writing fan fiction, Legion of Superheroes fan fiction, as a matter of fact. And a friend of mine said, well, why don't you just clear your brain, write some fan fiction? And I went so far as to go onto AO3 and see what you had to do to create an account. And then I thought, that's a good idea, but if I do that, I'm kind of going to feel like I put the training wheels back on the bike, and I don't want to do that. So I got an invitation to participate in a project I had really, really wanted to do. And I thought, okay, this is your shot. If you don't produce when you said you would produce, they are never going to ask you again. You have just got to push through this. And so I did, it was historical fiction. I did a lot of research on it, and I'm a research geek, so that gave me some confidence going into it. You know, I know these people, I know the circumstances they were in, and I was able to get it finished. And so then I thought, thank you. It's
a big deal.
Yeah. It felt like a big deal, and it was especially because it was a series of charity anthologies that I'd wanted to participate in. I'd looked at it and goes, gosh, it would be really great if they asked me to do that. And then they asked me, and then it's like, well, okay.
You manifested it.
I know, put up or shut up at this point, you know? And so then I thought, okay, maybe if I just write something that I'm not looking to sell, not fan fiction, but something in one of my series that I'm writing just for me. I'm not writing it to put it out. And when I finish it, if I like it, I'll put it out. But I'm not doing it because I have to put this out. And for me, that relieved some of the stress and some of the static. It just kind of cleared it away. And I think different things work at different times, at least for me. And all of us have our own coping mechanisms that maybe other people don't use. But the writing something you're not looking to sell was helpful, coming on the heels of it's now or never for this. So do it now or say bye-bye. And so it was kind of the combination of those two things that are getting me back into the groove.
I think for me, and I like Nancy, I'm a huge fan fiction writer, an embarrassing amount, in fact, because that's how I deal with stress. And that's what I found. I'm definitely someone where if I'm stuck, because I know the difference between I'm stuck because I just don't want to write this because it's a scene where I'm the scene. Those I can usually get knocked out in like a number of days or hours or what have you. But like the big ones where I get stuck, I often do. I like to go back to fan fiction, but not in a way of like, it kind of clears my palette in a way, if that makes any sense, where I pick up with something really fun and I just write it because it's fun. And then it kind of like, to me, fleshes out my brain a little bit. It lets me relax a little more. And then I feel like I can kind of like, it's whatever a long period, I leave it in the drawer. I feel like when I come back to it, I have fresher eyes because what I just came off of is something that I know very well, but I'm just playing around in the sandbox, as it were. But actually, again, same thing, segues very well into our next question. So, what is one stress relief thing that you do during the period where you're stuck? So, it can be anything. It can be listening to a song, food, vacation, a place, a time, any of that. What's one stress relief method that you like to use?
Can I not go first?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We can.
I'll
Yeah,
dive in.
we will
I'll
dive
dive
in.
I go for long walks, or I go out, and lately I've been kayaking. I've reworked my life so that I have a kayak now, and I go out on the lake, and because I know from long experience, and it's something that actually I learned from Janie Wirtz, is actually a scientific thing, is that when your body is in motion, your brain is more creative. So like and it doesn't have to be physical motion, but you know how you're in a car and all the ideas are coming? It's because your brain perceives that motion. And so when you're moving, if I'm physically moving, I'm more creative. Um, and so I will go for long, long, long walks. I used to get on my bike, or I used to go skiing. I don't bike anymore because everybody's on their cell phone and it's terrifying. Um, and I don't live where there's snow anymore. But I can go for long walks. I can go for hikes. I can get out on the lake and paddle. And so for me, it becomes this separation into this physical realm where my body's doing something else. I used to do a lot of dancing, troop dancing, belly dance in troops. And when I tried to do solo, I couldn't because my brain was used to keeping track of all these other things. And so if my body and then that is occupying a whole bunch of parts of my brains by doing these physical things, my brain goes, oh, okay, we can do this now. I don't know why it is. But for me, doing something physical is vital to let my imagination start flowing again. If I just sit around the house and pour myself a glass of wine, ain't nothing gonna happen. Ain't nothing gonna happen.
Well, it's kind of similar to what Paige said, but we have a dog who feels that those of us who live here and have two legs are his personal servants.
Well,
And
yeah,
so
yes.
he likes to tour the neighborhood. Now, that's kind of uplifting because he's having such a good time. But it's an exercise in frustration because I have actually said to him, we do not need to sniff the trunk of every bush
Yes,
in
we
this
do.
hedge. And I can see him thinking, well, maybe you don't. So
True.
I go with him, and that's a major distraction. But the other thing I do that I don't really just get up and go to the sink to do it, but if it needs to be done, I'll pick that moment to do it, is wash dishes.
Mhm.
Because there are actually studies that show that running water also stimulates creativity. And sometimes I'm looking out the window at the backyard, washing dishes. And really, washing dishes, you wash them today and there are more dirty dishes tomorrow. I mean, there ought to be something to be done about that.
Right.
Anyway, that sometimes
Truth.
does help with me to get unstuck. It's something about the running water. One of my Light Mage Wars books, I couldn't think of the right ending. It just wasn't. And it came to me in the shower. It's just.
And I love that someone invented something for that. There's literally like a little shower notepad, or there's little ones where you can
Yeah.
record.
Something.
You can say it out loud and it'll record. I was like, thank you for the ADHD writers and pantsers of the world.
The
Thank you
shower
for
is a
this
sacred
exercise.
space.
Oh yeah.
The shower is so sacred for ideas. How about you, Tara? Oh, dishwashing. Okay, very nice.
I never thought about it, but I love to wash dishes first thing in the morning. Like if there's things like I need to empty the dishwasher and then load it, there is something about just doing that starts my day off well. But for me, I have to change my space. So if I'm stuck, I need to go someplace else. So that could be outside, or it could be my favorite thing in the world are coffee shops. And even if I just go there and read, somehow that helps reset my brain a lot of the times. As a matter of fact, I was in a coffee shop this last time. Also reading, like if I'm getting into a new genre, which is what I'm doing right now, I'm going to go read the books that are like big in that genre. And so sometimes that can help restart my brain. But I would say what I do on the regular is meditation. So instead of moving, I'm trying not to move, which is probably an ADHD thing in a way. But if I can find some calmness, a lot of times that really helps me be able to do more, whether that's right or whatever it is that I need to get through. I would say that meditation and taking that moment to breathe, because I think we forget to breathe, and breathing is essential, but like intentionally breathing is super amazing when you do it. And so that was my thing that I brought out of COVID was I was like, I've been trying to meditate for 30 years. By gosh, I'm going to learn it now. And so that was my COVID gift, was learning how to meditate the way Tyra meditates, which is not necessarily how anybody else does.
That's awesome. I was going to say one of the things me and my mom have both had that issue. We have very loud, crowded minds. And so I gave up on it. I'm not going to lie. I just went, I don't think I'm capable of turning the internal noise off. But that's what she told me is when it got better for her is like she stopped trying to contextualize meditation the way that other people describe it. It's like you find your own, like whatever is inside of you that works for you. You don't have to do it the way that other people do.
Right. I lay down to meditate. I do not like sitting up. I like laying down. And my thoughts a lot of times are all over the place, and that's perfectly okay. That is the way Tyra does it. And if you do it differently, that's okay too.
Oh, that's so wonderful. I love hearing that as a success story, because I was going to say, I tried for years and it just doesn't.
This girl does meditate.
I know. Oh, goodness gracious. So earlier, Paige had mentioned Scrivener, which is a wonderful, wonderful tool for different writers. So I would say, do you have any software or tools and even this can be music playlists, stuff like that. Is there something that you would call a tool that in particular sometimes will help you kind of break out of the rut while you're in it?
Absolutely, music for sure. Okay. And classical music of all things. And I just bought, and this actually solved a huge problem for me. I bought an e-ink writer. I bought a Kindle Scribe. And so like I can write on it and it will turn it into text that I can put in my computer. And it solved the fact that I love to write longhand, but I hate transcribing. So this thing was a game changer for me in terms of how much I wrote. And it's been it helps my brain a lot. So music, and then this thing called a Kindle Scribe.
Awesome.
It's definitely music for me if I'm stuck. I cannot tell you how many things I have written have been inspired by song lyrics randomly for years. It's like, oh, that's the thought, and then I just rabbit hole that, chase that plot bunny. And I got away from it for a while, and I'm coming back to it, and it's really, really helpful. Scrivener changed my life when I found Scrivener in 2014, because I am not a person who thinks in linear fashion. And so the idea of starting something and writing, it starts here and then you go to the end in Word, forget it. And the idea of creating a Word file for every scene, forget it. Scrivener allows me to write whatever the hell I want and slot it into the binder, and then this is my jigsaw puzzle, Nancy. I jigsaw puzzle every scene into a novel, because I just write whatever the hell's in my brain in whatever order it comes into my brain, and then I put it all together at the end, which makes every person I know, even other pantsers, insane when they hear me say that. But I am not a linear thinker, and what kept me from writing long form for years was the idea that I had to write it one chapter at a time. And when I discovered Scrivener and I could write and organize it the way my brain works, my whole world changed. It was amazing to me that a piece of software could do that for me. I know it's not everybody's jam, but I will just like worship literature and latte and that crew forever.
Well, one thing I will say is we always want to impart to newer writers that everybody's process is different, and there's no way to do this incorrectly unless you're just being it's stuff that's obvious to you. Don't be a jerk like that. No, don't be a jerk in a book. as the same as in life. Don't be a jerk. Everybody's process is so different, and that's exactly why we have these panels to talk about the differences, but also the similarities. So anybody who might be watching the stream and you're new, there is no one way to do what we do. And that's why we talk about plotters versus pantsers. That's why we talk about all these different things. Every person is just a little bit different, and that is okay. How about you, Nancy? Is there a particular tool you like to get yourself out of the rut with?
Not really. What I really like is quiet. And for about a year, there was construction in our neighborhood, and it's not quiet. And so, what I discovered I could do is, if I'm writing a period story, because the Boar King stories are all set in three different eras, music from the period helps. With the World War II one, I had to go to big band because I can't write with words coming into my head. That just doesn't work for me.
Mhm.
And then I discovered that for fight scenes and adventure scenes, soundtracks like Pirates of the Caribbean, if I could find a soundtrack for The Mandalorian, I'd get that one. I love the music in that.
It's available on iTunes
Oh, okay, great.
because I write with it.
It's very oh yeah, that soundtrack,
Yeah.
that Star Wars, especially The Mandalorian in particular, really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, really good. So if I need to tune out the world, it's music. If the world around me isn't doing things that require me to tune it out to function, then I really just prefer the quiet, until somebody comes up and pokes me with his nose as if to say, hey, you with the opposable thumbs, come open the back door. So that.
I love it.
Mine is definitely very music heavy. I don't make playlists for things, but like if I need to like get into a certain mindset, there's like a set of songs I'll listen to, or that kind of stuff. I think it's funny when we mentioned motivation earlier, like in terms of like one of the things I do when I get stuck. I either go, it's in such extremes. Either I go to something I really love, like I'll watch a movie or watch a scene, something that I really love to inspire me back to like remember why I do this, or it's something I violently hate, and it's like, you know what, go watch something absolutely terrible so that you remember that you're not it gets rid of the imposter syndrome immediately. The War of the Worlds movie with Ice Cube has been my savior, because every time I sit down and I'm hard on myself about writing, it's like, at least I didn't make the Ice Cube War of the Worlds movie. I feel so much better. I am reinvigorated and all.
It's fabulous.
There is something to be said for looking at things that are bad. Yeah. There. I don't even know how to put this. I got given a copy of a book once that had like 1,000 5-star reviews on Amazon, and I was like, okay. And I couldn't get through the first paragraph.
Oh no,
Because
not paragraph.
The person in the lead character in the first paragraph is, in the first sentence, he is shirtless. And by the end of the paragraph, which is like 4 sentences, he is wiping his mouth on his sleeve. And I was like,
No.
and so this is forever known in my brain as, lives rent free in my brain as, in all capital letters, the terrible book. And long story short, this book ended up being part of the Amazon scandal a few years back, where the writers were buying reviews. Anyway, and I was just like, but initially I was like, this book has like 1,000 5-star reviews. Okay, I can do this.
Absolutely you can. Absolutely you can, because it's like, how do you fail continuity on the first paragraph? It's just the first. I get the ones where you're like, again, you're halfway through the book and you just forgot. No, it's the opening. The most important things that you need to show to the reader. It's the opening.
Yes, I was just like, so every time I think that I can't do this, or I'm crap at this, or whatever, because I believe that imposter syndrome is a patriarchal plot, but I'm just like, you know what? No. Because as many mistakes as I make, I'm never gonna make that one.
I was gonna say wiping your sleeve while shirtless is crazy. I was like, come
I
on.
was like, this is new. And and I just was like, okay, I'm trying to visualize this. I'm trying to figure out. There's no.
That is, there was a bit in 30 Rock where she's like, they were, because again, 30 Rock is about them being in a TV show. She's like, oh yeah, we all know about the television continuity rules. And so the camera cuts around to her. She's now magically in a scarf holding a Coke. And then it cuts to Jack, who has a Sprite. But when they switch, it's in different hands. I was like, see, this is what I'm talking about. Those are the things that we learn about in the writing process, which is, editing. Yay, our favorite. So actually, I wanted to jump into that just a little bit, because so much of when you get in the rut is actually after you've done that first wonderful draft that you've now read 600 times and never want to see again. So is there a part of your editing process that sometimes either takes the longest, or what is your experience when it's all right, boom, I finally got at least a first draft down? What does that editing process look like for you when it's done?
So that point where you hate the baby.
Yes.
Yeah, I hate the baby after I've edited it twice. I just hate the baby. And for me, it's like, because I'm a Virgo and a nitpicker and ADHD, there's always something. It's like somebody says found 3 typos on page 1 of The Secret, and that book has sold millions and millions of copies. Not saying it's not bad, and I'll do the same thing. I haven't read it. I own a copy because somebody gave it to me. But I won't waste time with it now because of Paige. So that's good to know. But I will keep finding them. And at what point do you have to at some point say stop instead of nitpick? So when I get to the nitpicking part, I know that I got to stop and walk away and let somebody else nitpick it for sure. But for me, that's the most demotivating part of editing, is when you've got all the kinks, but you still got the little tiny things that keep coming up and they just drive you insane. And it's not a very long walk. So
I love to edit. I like editing more than I like writing. When I get the first draft done, I am so excited because it's like, oh, now I get to fix it. I will put it aside for a month or two, and then I will come back to it. And I'm so excited. And I edit on paper. I don't edit on screen. I print the whole thing out, and I have a mechanical pencil, because do not get yourself a red pen. That's like childhood trauma waiting to re-enter your brain. And I take a mechanical pencil and I edit the entire thing in pencil, and then I type the edits back in. And by the time I'm doing that, I'm actually editing again. And so by the time I've gone through the whole book and typed it all back, I'm actually on a 3rd draft. It's just the most delightful feeling. I love the way my brain attacks the continuity and the pacing of the whole thing. Once I have the whole thing and I can play with it, it's like I'm in the sandbox, and it's like I've dug the hole and I've built the castle with all the sand, and now I get to like etch in all the blocks on the sandcastle. It's my favorite thing when I have the whole thing to play with, and I'm not having to do chunks of it anymore and figure out, did I remember that? Because I've got the whole thing to play with. I love it. It's my favorite thing. I like that part of editing more than I like writing. And then I turn it over to beta readers, and then they tear me new holes in my body, and then I have to do it again. But that initial first edit is so exciting to me, because then I get to see what I've done in its entirety in a way that I can't when I'm creating it, because of the way I create, because I create piecemeal. And to be able to get a vision of it and an overhead, 500-foot view of the whole thing is so much fun to me. And so printing it out, like I'm hearing that printer going, and I'm just like, which I know makes me weird, but
no, I get giddy every time I finish the book, because I'm like you. It's so funny, because I think that I entered the mode that I was in when I wrote it, like physically, because I just write directly into a Word document. And so, like her, I have a lot of trouble telling the pacing of a book when it's in digital form. So I print the whole thing out, and same thing, either whatever pen or whatever. But like, actually, it helps so much better with knowing, oh, okay, is my first act too overpacked? Is this one slow? Is like I really can't see it until I've actually printed it out. So yeah, I get it totally.
Yeah, that's my joy. My joy is having written it and having it in front of me and just being super excited to dig in and figure out all the things I did stupid and how many times I write the.
Oh, that's what I love.
I
I
know.
love the draft where I have to
So-
go and control F all of my favorite words. I know there are certain ones that I say way too many times,
Yep.
and I hit that control F and I go. How
Paige,
much
can I
Nancy?
ask
What
you a
is your-
question?
Yeah.
Because you said, I know you write like all your scenes, like all at different. When do you, in the process, do you try to put the scenes together to know that you're done? Is that before you're doing the editing or while you're
It's before I do the printout.
Okay.
It's before I do the printout. And sometimes I print it out and I've got the whole thing. I'm like, I've got it. And then I'm like, whoops, this one goes over here. And then I take the chapter and I move it, you know? But yeah, I have to do the jigsaw as best I can before I print it. And sometimes it ain't right. Sometimes it ain't right.
I was just wondering, I was just like, how does this work?
Yeah.
Well,
We'll have a beverage and we'll go in detail if you want. I'll bore you to death. So sorry, Nancy, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. It's okay. It's just I was gonna say I edit on hard copy too, because I can't see typos on the screen.
Correct.
And
yes.
Microsoft Word does not like the word mage, for example. It highlights it as wrong.
Yeah.
And so I don't fully trust Microsoft Word because it does other things that are not good. Like, I'm not sure if it's Word or another program insists that the period be outside the quotation marks. And
I
it's
know.
like,
I know.
no. And so
Yeah, it drives me
sometimes it
crazy.
changes it as you're working, and I don't see it on the screen. So I print it out like that too. And the edit phase is where I really can check the pace. I used to have a critique partner who would, especially with historical things, would say, "You see this bit right here?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Nobody cares about that but you. Get rid of it." And so, and sometimes I hear her voice in my head going,
Baby.
"Nobody cares about that but you. Get rid of it." And so then I look at it and I take it out and I read the scene without it. And if the scene works without, like, I did all this research on what people eat, and why should I not share that with the universe? I mean, it will educate people, and it's like, it will also bore people to tears. And that's why you don't put that in there. But I put all that stuff in the first draft because then I can see how it affects the pace of the scene. And also, unfortunately, with historical periods, I made the mistake, don't ever do this, it's not a good idea, to write a trilogy with each of 3 books in a period you have never written in before.
Oh God.
So I'd read
Nancy.
through and I'd think, wait, is that right? And then I go herring off down, the nearest rabbit hole.
Yep.
And actually I made a mistake in the
Oh.
World War II book because the heroine's caught in the Dunkirk evacuation. She comes back. She's filthy. She's got a place to stay. And she takes a bath. And my friend who grew up in England went, no. At that point, most houses in England did not have indoor plumbing. And when you think about retrofitting a 200-year-old building with indoor plumbing, my mother was born in 1920 in North Carolina. She grew up in a house that had indoor plumbing. So I'm like, indoor plumbing. And thank goodness that I asked my friend to read it, because then I would have been humiliated in public for putting this out there as if it was right. She said, my husband's a few years older than we are, and he remembers going to the village pump to get water for his grandmother. The bathtub is a literal tub in the kitchen floor, and you haul the water, and the toilet's outside. If there's a toilet, it's outside. And so, and that was never assume So naturally, I reacted to that by checking everything else. And so I enjoy doing that. But It's a, you can,
It's a time
it,
sink.
yes, it's like living in a rabbit hole when you do that. And then I go, oh, well, that's so interesting. I wonder how this affects that, which has
And then
nothing to
three
do with
hours
my
later, you
story.
go, "Oh my god,
Yeah,
I came
it's
here for one thing, and no."
I had
yes,
Now,
one
now I
job.
know all this information about kangaroos, and okay,
yeah.
oops.
So my problem with editing is not getting attracted to side trails that
Mm,
really are completely irrelevant to the story and
Yeah.
the world as it figures in the story. But
Yeah.
it's like after I made what would have been a huge faux pas, and I'm telling the universe about it, so I'm hoping you're not all going to think I'm stupid because I did that. But
yeah, no.
somebody saved me, and so it's okay. But it was a lesson in never assume you know. And
Mhm.
so naturally, I react to that in my usual anal retentive fashion by checking absolutely everything that can be checked.
Oh,
And
me
this
too.
is why I do not write historical fiction,
You
because
took the words out of my mouth, Paige.
I
I
am
don't write
too
historical because I am terrified of doing that. I
I am
just,
Yes.
terrified, and I'm too
ugh,
ADHD to focus for long enough to find those flaws, and I would get eaten alive. I am
oh.
a secondary world writer for a reason.
Mhm.
I'll give you a perfect one. And this wasn't even an actual error, but it tells you why it's just so stressful. So I wrote a short story in Black Panther Tales of Wakanda. And so I'm going to say a month after it came out, I wake up, and this is when I was still using Twitter, before Twitter ruined the universe. And I wake up and I see this reply, and it is from some dude I don't know, and he says, "How dare you? There's 500 different dialects of Nigeria, and you didn't say which one that this character spoke in the short." Oh, what? This random internet man jumped on Twitter, found me after reading my short story to yell at me that I didn't say which dialect of Nigerian the character spoke. The reason this doesn't matter is that the Nigerian was the clue. The area that they were in is not an area where it was spoken, so that was the clue. Is that they spoke it at all? I know there are 500 dialects of Nigerian. I just didn't pick one because it didn't matter. So I just went, no, the clue is that they spoke Nigerian, not which dude just lost his mind and screamed at me for that. And I was like, it wasn't factually incorrect. I just didn't say which dialect, sir. No, he really went out of his way to find me and insult me for doing that. And I just like, okay, block. And then I just moved on with my life. But boy,
Mhm.
I remember that for years. It's like I was like, it wasn't wrong. I just didn't say which one it was. There's 500 of them without
Well,
proper it
and
didn't have any bearing.
this is actually something that's really, really important, because I think sometimes, especially new writers, can get stuck on trying to please everybody, trying to
Yes.
get every detail right, trying to get everything right, trying to be perfect, and they lock up and they lose their motivation because they get scared. I nobody's going to want this. Not everybody's going to like it. What if I do this wrong? And and the truth of the matter is, you're always going to piss somebody off. You're always going to get something wrong.
True.
You're always going to have a comma that's in the wrong place that somebody's going to send you a 5-page email about it.
Mhm.
That's okay. As long as you write with integrity, as long as you write with honesty, as long as you're, quite frankly, following Will Wheaton's law and you're not being a dick, um,
Mhm.
that you're doing your best and you're trying your hardest. This is not about perfection. This is about integrity. Your integrity in how you write, in the words that you choose, in the respect that you use when you're writing characters that are not you. Like, I'm a white girl from New England, right? I have limited world experience. Uh, um, when I am writing folks who are not me, don't look like me, don't speak like me, don't think like me, don't have a background like me, I have a great responsibility to do the absolute best I can and take critique when I get it wrong. Doesn't mean I shouldn't try. As long as I am writing from a place of integrity, I should not let fear lock me down from trying, because that's how we grow and that's how we learn. And I think a lot of new writers get locked up and blocked because they think every little detail has to be exactly right. And the truth of the matter is, you're going to put a bathtub in a house that doesn't have one, you know, and you're going to put a comma in a place where it doesn't belong, and you're going to not mention the dialect and piss somebody off. That's the reality of it. And you've got to tell your story anyway, as long as you're a person of integrity and you're writing with integrity and taking responsibility for what you write. Don't let that fear lock you up.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely
that's a
something
really
to.
good point.
Yes, for
Yeah.
everybody here, for motivation, don't let that fear lock you up, because it's scary. What we do is a little scary now. So Joe said we have a couple of questions. We want to grab those before we get out of here. So I'm ready when you are, Joe. That's a couple of audience questions, I believe. All right. Question for the panel. Have you ever mistaken being unmotivated for just not being interested in the story you were trying to write? And how do you handle that? I'm going to jump in first just because, yes. So I was writing the second series I have of Cinder and Bone is a series of basically science fiction if dragons were real creatures, like real biology and shit.
I love that
And
story.
thank you. And I got to after the third book, which I loved. Man, I really loved that how it turned out. And I got to the fourth one, and I got halfway through, and I was like, "This is the shittiest shit that has ever shit. I will never recover. I am a fraud." And it turned out it was a bad story. It wasn't a bad story. It was that all of the characters were passive, so it was unconsciously driving me nuts. That it just felt like things were happening to them and nobody was doing a thing. And so that is when I found out, oh no, there's a difference between I dislike the story and the story's not working. And the other problem was that it turned out I came up with a better idea in the middle of this book, but I couldn't like wipe the whole book out and just write that idea. There were too many steps in between the two. So I still had to leave that book to get to the new idea. So then that was the new part. I had to literally rip the novel in half, stick this over here for what it was going to be in book 5, sit down and go, why the hell is everybody a passive character in this book? And then when I flipped them all to active, fix the problem. Tyra, Paige, and Nancy. So that was the question. How do you know the difference between unmotivated and I just didn't like the damn story?
So I'm a professor, so I write academic stuff as well. And that happens to me with academic stuff all the blasted time, because you just are like, I don't want to do this. Or you'll get down a path and you're like, darn it, the research is different than what I thought it was, or the outcome was different. And so the same thing happens in fiction. And usually I just throw something across the room right about that. And then I go and outline again. So with academia, when I'm doing something that's not quite as creative, I'll go back to an outline. And I probably should do that when I write too, but I don't like outlines. But when I
don't
write
either. I don't feel bad. I don't outline anything. Like if I do it, it's like weirdly
to.
in like 2/3 of the way through the book, I'll go outline.
Like I want to embrace the outline because it helps me so much professionally, right? And when I write about social media, but so that's what I go. If it's really crap, I go back to the outline and go, well, maybe the whole idea was crap, and then I just sometimes just soldier forth. You just plow through whether you want to or not. Can't fix a blank page, as Nora Roberts would say.
Yes, yes.
Um, I had a request from a friend of mine who was putting together an anthology to write a story for an anthology, and it was an open call story. I wasn't invited to most certainly be an author in it, and it was on something that I frankly didn't give a flying flip about. But I said, okay, I'll put something together, and a lot of it was because I hadn't written anything in a long time. My life for the last couple of years has been difficult. And I have not been writing regularly, which is getting better, but this is a timely panel. And what happened was I actually sat down and wrote the story and finished the story. It did not get accepted into the anthology, but the fact that I finished it at all was a victory. And even though it was on something that I didn't really care about, I didn't hate the story. And so it's like, okay, so it was a reminder that I can finish something, um, that I can that my skill as a writer is not reduced by the fact that the topic is not something that I am in love with. And even though the story didn't make the anthology, I did get good feedback on it, and it just didn't fit. It just didn't fit what the overall vibe of the anthology ended up being. It wasn't that it was a bad story. And so me pushing through on a lot of levels, completing something when I hadn't completed anything in a while, writing on a topic that I wasn't really terribly enthused about, and still turning out something that was a good story, um, was really really good for me. It was good for my brain. It was good for my mental health, and good for my motivation because um, sometimes you have to just get through the thing just to prove to yourself that your skills still exist. Um, and it's not necessarily a fun time, but on the other side of it, it's a good thing. So,
Yeah. Well, and earlier I talked about being in a similar situation to what Paige just talked about, having real trouble with putting words on the page. And for me, the main way I can tell the difference between unmotivated, although in the last couple of years it's not so much been unmotivated as blocked. And I used to say, "Oh, I've never had writer's block." You should never say that because then writer's block around the corner will come and pounce on you. Um, but how I know I just don't like the story is that when I step away from the keyboard, the characters don't step away with me. And so then it's a question of what don't I like about this story? Why don't, is it the people? Is it the situation? And I had one story I was working on several years ago. One of the books that I wrote before I sold my first book was a historical romance. And I was trying to write a sequel to that. And the dynamic between the frickin' characters just would not click. And finally, I read over what I'd written. I had about 25 pages. And I thought, it's not clicking because the heroine's companion is more interesting than she is. And it's kind of, okay, into the dustbin, redo these characters, because if one character is inherently more interesting than the other, for me, some people probably could fix that. I can't fix that because it feels like it's just forcing it into a channel where it doesn't fit. And so I just gave up on the story. And really unmotivated, if you're sitting at the keyboard and you find yourself thinking, when I took my shower this morning, the shower really looks like it could use the going over. I think I'm going to go do that. That's unmotivated.
when I want to run the trash to the dump instead of writing.
All right. So if we've got enough time. So how long do you wait before you start editing your first draft? I can say for me, I was going to say it really varies. It's going to depend on if I'm on a deadline or not. But on average, I was going to say I usually stick things in a drawer pretty much immediately after I finish that first draft. It'll go away for between 1 and 2 months, depending on how much time I have. But on average for me, I usually start the editing process about 2 months after that first draft.
Yeah.
I have to start immediately. Otherwise, I will stick it in a drawer and ADHD forget it. So I have to have a plan. So I either have to start immediately or it's got to go in a calendar or on my Finch that says, you're going to start editing this on this date. Otherwise, I will casually forget in the realm of doing the day job and the house and the dog and the 2 cats that it exists. And then I'll wake up 4 months later going, well, frack it all. I forgot about the baby. I need to go get the baby again. So,
it was your own personal Tamagotchi.
Yes.
Forgot it was there.
Which is probably why the Fed chat works so well for me, because I have to go see this bird every day.
Good.
Love it. It varies wildly. If it's a short story, I'll give it a few days. If it's a novel, well, given the way I write, if it's a novel, I usually spend like 3 or 4 weeks putting together the puzzle. And then I let it sit for another couple of weeks and then I print the thing. It's pretty funny. But there's a break in going into organizing mode, out of creative mode into organizing mode, that that kind of separates my brain from it. Um, so yeah, I'm with Kyoko. It's a month or two, a short story, a few days to a week. Um, yeah.
Whatever I write, I have to make a pass through it after I write the end. I have to print it out and read the whole thing because that kind of puts the story as a whole into my brain rather than the segments that I've most recently been working on. And then I let it sit for about a week and I take another pass and then I send it to critique partners. And then when they send it back, I do another pass through it. And depending on how much time I have, I might make another one. If it's a book I'm going to publish myself, I definitely will take yet another pass through it. If it's a book that's going to be professionally edited by a publisher, then I'll get it so I'm comfortable with it, it's in good shape, and I'm thinking she might have suggestions that'll make this better. So I think I'm going to get it to the point where I'm happy with it, and then I'm going to send it to her and see what she says. Because that for me is always good insight. My editor at Falstaff is Lucy Blue, and she read a novella in a series that I owe like one more novella on, and then they can start bringing it out. And when she called me, she said, "This is a novella." And I said, "Yeah." And she went, "You have a cast of thousands." And nobody had caught that I had a cast of thousands until Lucy, and that's a slight exaggeration, but she said, "Can you combine some of these people?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can do that." And I'm much happier with the story since I listened to her and took her feedback. So it just depends how many passes I feel like it needs. And my first book that sold, I took 7 passes through it. I sent it to my agent. She criticized it. I took an 8th pass through it, and then she sent it out. And so it just depends on the project. That was the first one with a new magic system, so all that has to be coherent. It has to be not only coherent, but clear. So the reader's not sitting there going, "What? How? What?" Because that's terrible. When a reader is doing that, you have lost them. And so the more unfamiliar the material is to me, the more times I have to go through it before I'm ready to let it go into the world.
Gotcha. One thing I did want to mention, I forgot to say this when we were circling back on tools. In addition to printing mine out, Read Aloud to me is very, very helpful. Just the basic one I have in my little, we're not going to talk about what year my Microsoft Word is because I'm an elder god millennial. And I remember, dang it, when we were young, we used to buy Microsoft Word. We had it forever. We had no substitutions and no daggum subscriptions. But anyway, so there is a little free feature, and I'm gonna say I am in 2010 or 2011. And Read Aloud, it is still the goofy robot voice, but to me, it's so helpful for missing words. That, like Nancy has said, if I look at it on a page where I wrote it, I think my brain goes back into the state I was in when I wrote it. So A, I need it in print, and B, yes, I have to listen to my entire book at a point when I want to throw it against a wall. But again, it catches so many dropped words or homonyms or just little, or like, I actually did catch myself calling somebody the wrong name in the draft. So Read Aloud, huge tool. All right, Joe, do we have any other further questions?
While he thinks of that, there's a tool I use called Obsidian, which has helped me keep my magic system straight.
Wonderful.
It's like your own little wiki. So if anybody's looking for a good little wiki system,
cool.
Obsidian, and Ben Meeks introduced me to it.
That's very cool. Thank you
That's
so
good
much.
to know.
Yeah, I know that one. All right. Well, I think that ends our broadcast this evening. We don't have any additional questions. So I'm going to try and see if we can get Paige back so she can say bye. It looks like her browser's giving her a little bit of trouble. But as we wait, we'll go. Oh, there she goes.
Yay!
Perfect. Okay, so we'll go right back around.
My camera. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Things happen.
I want to add one more thing to editing tools. It switched my camera from my camera up here to my camera down here. Is monospace fonts. When I print it out, I print in Courier New, which is the typewriter font, because it makes all the letters the same size, which makes it easier to spot typos. I'm just
Oh,
throwing that out there.
that is
Was
cool.
it
Well, thank you.
monospaced font?
Monospace fonts, where typewriter letters are all the same size,
Yeah.
and so they're all the same width, and
Nice.
so they don't vary in width like Times New Roman or other more modern fonts, and so all the letters are the same size, so it makes it easier to see when something's weird.
Gotcha. No,
I
I
don't know
love
how
it.
else to put it. Um,
Awesome. Thank you.
why is this thing on the wrong camera? It doesn't matter. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So we're going to say our names and where you can find our stuff. And if you have a upcoming release, please go ahead and plug that in. And then tell us if you'll be at Multiverse with me and these other wonderful people as well.
So you can find me at tyraburton.com. Everything is there. I'm on almost every social media platform because I teach it. So I'm there whether I want to be or not. And Be Awesome Together is the live stream podcast that I've been focusing my creative energy on, besides a cozy fantasy that's getting itself written as we speak. And I will be at Multiverse, and I can't wait. I'm actually presenting an academic session as well. So I get to do both sides of my world. So if you want to learn about Star Wars and how it changed marketing for movies, just come. It's going to be fun. Me and 2 librarians are presenting. So there's 3 different papers. It'll be a great time on the Learn track.
Awesome.
The problem with Multiverse is I want to be at as many panels as I'm on. It's a problem.
Yes.
Yep.
So yeah, Paige L. Christie everywhere. I will be at Multiverse. Julia Benson Slaughter and I are having a pound cake throwdown where she's baking a cake and I'm baking a cake, and we're gonna have a come tell us who's the best pound cake. Anyway, it's a whole thing. So that's happening at Multiverse. I'm also, as of tonight, going to be leading the wine tasting at Multiverse.
Nice.
Because I used to own a wine shop in another life. So that should be pretty funny. And I think the next thing I have coming out is I write IP for Valdemar, and the newest Valdemar anthology is coming out at the end of this year, and I will be in that with an ongoing character that I've had in several of their books. So that's the latest thing I've got coming out.
I am Nancy Northcott everywhere. My website is nancynorthcott.com. On all social media, I'm some variation of that. My next release is The Other Sun, which is actually historical fiction with romantic elements, no magic, just history, Wars of the Roses era. And then after that will be The Speaker for All, which is science fiction by the end of the year. It's part of the Outcast Station science fiction series. I also will be at Multiverse, and I'm looking forward to it. And in addition to wearing my writer hat, I'll be wearing my Continual hat because I'm the comics track director for Continual, and we are having a Continual get-together. And we're 24/7 multi-genre online convention that never sleeps on Facebook. So I'm trying to get that quick before we start. So that's me, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody at Multiverse, and I hope you'll all come out.
All right. And once again, I am Kyoko M. You can find all my stuff at shewhowritesmonsters.com. I'm going to plug real quick our Terminus 3 anthology, which is a science fiction, fantasy, and horror anthology by Milton J. Davis over at MV Media, which just recently came out. My story is about the daughter of the Wolfman, Cassandra Moody, taking the father of all vampires to a Halloween murder mystery dinner. Because why not?
Nice.
Why would you not take Dracula to a murder mystery dinner? And it's themed after House on the Haunted Hill. Even better. So yes, I would love everybody to run out and grab a copy of that. But thank you so much for joining me tonight, ladies. This was wonderful. We learned so much, and we just commiserated, didn't we?
Yes.
And thank you. You did.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for joining us out there. We can't wait to see you all at Multiverse. Once again, Multiverse will be October 17th through the 19th in our very own Peachtree City, Georgia. You can look up anything about it at multiversecon.org. Please, please, please join us. We're going to have so much fun. And thank you for being here.